Welcome to the Get Published podcast, sponsored by Brodie Consulting Group. To get more information about our coaching, publishing, executive ghostwriting, and podcast production services, go to getpublishedpodcast.com. Hello, I am Paul Brodie, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Get Published podcast, where we help authors get published with a proven system that works. Today, we're being joined by Dr. Linda Blakeley, author of Fried, Frenzied, Frazzled, Maximize Success, Minimize Stress. Dr. Linda, welcome to the show.
Well, hi, Paul. Thanks for having me on the show. I look forward to sharing with you and your audience whatever I can do that helps.
Well, we are thrilled to have you. Are you ready to begin?
I am as ready as I'll ever be.
All right. Question number one. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to a first-time author who is currently writing their book?
Well, it's basically one word, and the one word is persevere. I think writing is its own growth process, and if you are fortunate enough to be a writer naturally, it's not so difficult, but I was not a writer naturally, so I had to persevere through a very circuitous road of ride of becoming a writer that could finally self-publish their own book. I still shock myself. People, especially one friend, would say, "Is it published yet? Is it published yet?" And I'd say, "Leave me alone." But his doing that kept me on track because it was very difficult and I was scared that it wasn't going to be good enough. I wasn't smart enough. I wasn't anything enough. And the funny thing is, that's exactly what the book's about. Love yourself from the inside out. So I had to learn my own lessons, and persevere was a really important message that I got. Also, to write and not edit at the same time, to trust what it is that you want to say. And this is a nonfiction book. It's not a novel. So for me, one of the most difficult parts over the last 20 years was being willing to tell my clients' stories in a fictitious kind of way, but keeping the essence of the story there so that the reader could learn from it. And that was very hard for me. I literally had to go to acting school. I had to take a lot of writing courses. I had to go through that whole process. So in general, it's write, don't edit. It takes a long time and a lot of patience to come through and complete a book. I tended to do most of it by myself. But again, that was after the first time I tried to write it was I had a publisher interested. It didn't work. The second time I had an agent, it didn't work. The third time I said, oh my God, I'm so much older. I can't wait any longer. I'm going to write it myself and publish it. And I met people online from an organization called Self-Publishing School that have a whole resource of information that helped me to gain some strength and confidence. And I worked with a coach in the last year to really help me go through a lot of that process. So trust yourself, but get help.
And what do you feel is the hardest part about getting published?
Well, the hardest part for me was understanding the process. When I first started, I had a friend who just had a book published, and he introduced me to his publisher. I sent them a proposal. I mean, it's ironic if I look now. I didn't know a thing about anything when I did that. It didn't come to fruition. The next part was to rewrite it, and I had an agent who said I needed a co-writer and didn't help me get one. So I got really disgusted, and I actually threw the book away. But I kept the first chapter, and it was a story. It was a fictionalized story, which I love creativity. I'm very spontaneous. I take a lot of risks, except you can't take risks in a way when you don't know what you're doing. You have to learn. So I've had to learn a lot. So the hardest part for me was to take the circuitous route, but begin to really value my own input as well as my own destination. Not worry about where I was going to go, but learn in the process. And today, with Amazon and Kindle, I mean, the resources are endless to do self-publishing, but it's a whole business in itself. And I've seen people write 100 books, and each one is on Amazon. I've seen people write 15 books and they're all on Amazon. They just keep writing and writing. So that's the hardest part, is to know where I belong, how I can write best, what I can offer, and my goal is always to help.
Well, let's talk about marketing. So please share a marketing strategy that you have used in your book launch that has worked well.
I mean, that's a really good question. I'm at the beginning of that. I only launched my book about 7 weeks ago, and because I came into self-publishing through one publisher and then found out about Amazon and self-launching and all that in the process, I'm a little behind in how to launch my book effectively. But for me, I've done a lot of speaking at conferences. I've done a lot of different workshops. I had my own television show years ago. Those are all very familiar kinds of ways to market for myself. I'm going to do podcasts because this is really fun and I like it. It's sort of a semi-easier way than being on air visually. So I have all those tools which I'm going to use. I've had some reviews already from people who read the book, and I'm in the process of learning the process of marketing. And I'm sure I'm going to have coaches help me along the way.
Well, speaking of books, I'd like to know, what is your favorite book and what was the number one thing that you learned from it?
Well, you're going to be interested because I don't know if anybody else would say this book, but I recommend it to my clients all the time who are in transition. It was called The Artist's Way, and it's still The Artist's Way. I read that book probably 30 years ago. I was a new therapist. I did the whole 12-week, it's a 12-week program. And at the end of it, I went to acting school for 2 years and said, I don't care about anything. I'm doing this because if I don't do it now, I learned to express my creativity, to value my voice, and to be able to take that voice that I developed in those classes and use it in this book and trust myself.
And for a final question, what is your favorite quote and why?
Well, I'm going to have to read you a poem from my book, which was written by Ralph Waldo Emerson. In the book, I start out with my story, which is called The Roller Coaster Ride. This book particularly is focused on women in recovery from eating disorders, addiction, and trauma. And after I tell my story, I start out with the chapter on the power of success. So Ralph Waldo Emerson said it better than I ever could about what is most important to me in my life. And I'll read it to you. It says, to laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and affection of children, to earn the appreciation of honest critics and endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate beauty, to find the best in others, to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or redeemed social condition, to know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived. This is to have succeeded. So I had to read the whole poem because every line speaks to me, and I hope it speaks to others.
Nice. Yeah, I really like that. What's your favorite part about that quote, about that area?
Well, actually, it's to know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived, is to have succeeded. Because sometimes my aims and my goals are so high that if I don't help millions or thousands or hundreds of millions, or then I don't feel I've succeeded in the kind of work I've done. It's very small piece work. And just to appreciate that I can be there for someone is more important than how many others. I hope others get something, but that was the most important.
Well, and I love that you mentioned that. One of my philosophies has always been about the power of one. And that is, no matter what we're doing, if we have the opportunity to help just one person in their journey, then it just makes all the difference.
You know what? That you just touched my heart, because I think we speak the same language, and I've always wanted to do more and bigger, but when it comes to really being satisfied, it's doing something like we're doing right now, on a one-to-one basis, sharing as human beings, and not worrying about how many people learn or don't learn. The people who are supposed to have learned.
Absolutely.
I thank you for this privilege.
Hey, it's been our pleasure. And Dr. Linda, I want to thank you for being a guest on our show. What is the best way for people to find you online?
I have two ways. One, it would be drlindablakely.com. I have a website, which is also being changed to accommodate to the book. And the other way would be my email, drlindablakely@aol.com. And it's ELEY, because a lot of people leave one of the E's out.
Well, Dr. Linda, I want to thank you once again for being on the show, and I wish you all the best in your author journey ahead.
Thank you very much, and I wish you the best in everything that you're doing, because you are reaching out to thousands of, or probably even more, writers who need to be heard and supported.
Thanks again for joining us today. To learn more about how you can be featured in our brand new Get Published business book, go to getpublishedpodcast.com.